high school student just built a filter that removes 96% of microplastics from drinking water. That sounds like incredible news. But here's the part nobody's leading with. That means right now, today, without that filter, you are drinking every single one of those particles. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what those particles are doing inside your body and the 3 things you can do about your exposure before this invention ever reaches your tap. This video is not a science fair story. This is a story about your bloodstream. We're going to cover what microplastics actually are and where they come from, what the latest research says they're doing to your heart, your hormones, and your brain, how saturated the contamination already is, and critically, what you can do right now, today, with products that already exist. Stay through to the end, because point 4 is the one that most health coverage completely skips. First, some context on how we got here. Microplastics are exactly what they sound like, tiny fragments of plastic, most smaller than 5 millimeters, many invisible to the naked eye. They come from plastic bottles breaking down, synthetic clothing releasing fibers in the wash, industrial runoff, and even the breakdown of larger plastic waste in oceans and rivers. They end up in the water supply, they end up in the food supply, they end up in the air. A 2024 study found microplastic particles in every single human blood sample tested. Not some, every one. So when a high school student develops a filter that pulls out 96% of them from drinking water, the scientific community pays attention because right now, no standard municipal water treatment system gets anywhere close to that number. So let's start with what the science actually says is happening inside you right now. For years, the assumption was that microplastics passed through the body without doing much damage, that they were essentially inert, just moving through and out. That assumption is now being aggressively revised. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2024 found microplastic and nanoplastic particles embedded in the arterial plaque of patients who had undergone heart surgery. The patients with high concentrations of microplastics in their plaque were 4.5 times more likely to experience a heart attack, stroke, or death within 3 years compared to patients with low concentrations. 4.5 times. To put that in direct personal terms, if you are drinking unfiltered tap water or water from plastic bottles regularly, you are very likely accumulating microplastics in your cardiovascular tissue. That is not a hypothetical future risk. Current research suggests it is already happening. Separately, microplastics have been found in human lung tissue, liver tissue, placental tissue, and most recently in human brain samples. The brain findings, reported in 2024 by researchers at the University of New Mexico, found that brain tissue today contains significantly more microplastic than brain tissue from 2 decades ago. The accumulation is measurable and it is accelerating. Here's what makes this more urgent. Researchers aren't just finding microplastics in sick people. They're finding them in healthy people too. The exposure is not selective. Beyond the cardiovascular system, there's a second layer of concern that gets far less coverage, and it affects your hormones. Many of the chemical compounds that make plastic flexible or durable, particularly a class called phthalates and compounds like bisphenol A or BPA, are what scientists call endocrine disruptors. That means they interfere with your body's hormone signaling system. When microplastics carrying these compounds enter your bloodstream, they can mimic or block natural hormones. Estrogen, testosterone, thyroid hormones. The downstream effects include disrupted fertility in both men and women, earlier onset of puberty in children, thyroid dysfunction, increased risk of hormone-sensitive cancers, and metabolic disruption that contributes to weight gain and insulin resistance. A 2023 report from the Endocrine Society described plastics-related chemical exposure as one of the most significant and underappreciated threats to human hormonal health globally. What makes this particularly difficult is that most of the disruption is invisible. It doesn't produce an immediate symptom you'd connect to a glass of water. It accumulates quietly over years. And the populations most at risk are children, pregnant women, and anyone with a thyroid condition, because their endocrine systems are operating under higher sensitivity or demand. If you have kids in your household drinking unfiltered water daily, this is the category of risk you most need to understand. Consider this number. The average American is estimated to ingest approximately 5 grams of microplastic every single week. That is the equivalent weight of a credit card. Every week. Inside your body. Now here's where the contamination picture gets genuinely staggering, because the problem extends well beyond your drinking glass. Microplastics have been found in sea salt, honey, beer, fresh fruits and vegetables, infant formula, and human breast milk. They've been found in Arctic ice cores and in the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth. There is no ecosystem on the planet that has not been reached. So even if you never drink tap water again, you are still being exposed through food, air, and consumer products. This matters for understanding what the student's invention actually solves and what it doesn't. The filter addresses one major exposure pathway, drinking water, and that is genuinely significant because drinking water is estimated to be responsible for a large portion of daily microplastic ingestion. But it operates in the context of a contamination problem that is systemic and global. Municipal water systems in the United States are generally not equipped to filter particles at the nanoplastic scale, particles smaller than 1 micrometer that are too small for most current treatment methods to capture. Bottled water, counterintuitively, has been shown in multiple studies to contain higher concentrations of microplastics than tap water, largely because of particle shedding from the plastic bottle itself, meaning the thing millions of people switched to for health reasons may be making the plastic exposure problem worse. So the invention is real, the need is urgent, but what can you actually do right now before this technology ever reaches a store shelf near you? That's what point 4 is for. This is where the video pays off, because there are concrete, evidence-backed steps you can take right now that meaningfully reduce your microplastic exposure, while the student's invention works its way through development and commercial scaling. First, your water filter matters enormously, and not all filters are equal. Reverse osmosis filtration systems have been shown in independent testing to remove between 90 and 99% of microplastics from tap water. They require installation, typically under a sink, and cost between $150 and $400 up front, with filter replacements annually. That is a real cost, but it is the highest performing option currently available to consumers. If that's not accessible right now, certified pitcher filters using activated carbon and ion exchange, specifically those certified to NSF Standard 58 or NSF Standard 53, perform meaningfully better than uncertified filters and can reduce microplastic load in your drinking water significantly. Second, eliminate plastic water bottles. Switch to stainless steel or glass. This is not about environmental virtue signaling. It is about the fact that plastic bottles actively shed particles into the water they contain, particularly when exposed to heat, like a bottle left in a car. Third, reduce heating food in plastic containers. Microwave safe does not mean microplastic free. The heat accelerates particle release. Glass or ceramic for heating, every time. Fourth, and this one resolves the curiosity loop from the hook, the 4% the student's filter doesn't catch. Current research suggests the smallest nanoplastic particles are the ones most capable of crossing cellular membranes, including the blood-brain barrier. The student's invention, remarkable as it is, addresses the larger particles most efficiently. The frontier of the research and the frontier of consumer protection is nanoplastics, which remain largely unregulated and undertested. What you can do: support your body's natural detox pathways. Current early-stage research, including work from Harvard and the NIH, suggests that adequate hydration, dietary fiber, and liver-supporting nutrients may help reduce the retention of plastic-associated chemicals. This is not a cure, but while policy and technology catch up, it is the most rational personal response available. Here's what we want to know from you. Drop it in the comments right now. Do you currently use any kind of water filter at home? And after watching this, are you going to change what you're using? The comments on this video are genuinely useful. People regularly share what's working for them, and it's worth reading through. Tell us where you're starting from. If this video gave you something useful, the next one will too. but only if you're subscribed. Trends Daily covers exactly this: the science, the policy, and the economic shifts that are already affecting your health and your wallet, translated into what they actually mean for your daily life, not academic summaries and not panic. Coming up next, we're covering the regulatory gap around forever chemicals, PFAS, in public water systems, and specifically which states have the highest contamination levels and what your legal rights are if you're in one of them. That is a video worth having in your feed. Hit subscribe and you won't miss it.